Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing I did with her, a little introduction that introduces what we're talking about, okay?
Okay.
My name is Day Johnson. I'm interviewing Mr. Ralph Garnes at his home in Left Fork Road in Bidwell, Ohio, kind of, on August the 29th, 2007. Thank you very much. I'm just going to remind you, make sure you answer in a complete sentence because my voice is going to be cut out of the tape. So if I say, what's your name, my name is, where you're born, I was born, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And just act like you're telling me a story. So, you know, embellish whatever I ask, make it into a story. No lies. just make it into a story. Okay? What is your full name and please spell it for us?
My name is Ralph Eugene Garnes, RalphEugene
And what is your date and place of birth? When and where were you born? And were you born at home or in a hospital?
I was born July the 8th, 1938. I was born in the country, and it was a place called Beulahville, Ohio. And we lived on a farm, 88 acres. My father had bought a farm, and it's not too far from here. I was not seen by a doctor, but a midwife delivered me, as my mother tells it. And so I don't think I had seen a doctor until I was a young, about 5 or 6 years old.
And when you finally saw a doctor, what did you see him for?
Well, we went to the store one time, and there was a place in Gallipolis here called Evans Supermarket, and that was our first big, store that, as we know it when we were children. And the parking lot was gravel like limestone, and we parked in the parking lot. And I got out of the vehicle with my brothers, and whenever I stepped out and I started to walk, I passed out. And I heard my mother say something whenever I was coming to, and then she told my brother, Dale. He helped me up, and he told him to hold my hand, so he held my hand, and so I passed out again, and I pulled him down because he was holding on to me, and then my mother said, "We've got to take him to a doctor." So that's the first time that I understand that I was to a doctor.
And where was that doctor located?
In Gallipolis. It was, it was told to me by my mother, it was Dr. Shane was his name. He has long since passed. He was a pretty prominent doctor in Gallipolis for a long time.
What was the cause of you passing out?
Never did find out. The doctor speculated. He said, he probably had gotten up too fast or something like that. And I knew that that wasn't the problem because I was walking. But he said maybe I just need some rest.
Did that ever happen to you again, the fainting and passing out? Or was that
Not to my knowledge, no.
What do you consider your family's ethnic or racial background to be?
First, my ethnic background is Negro, African American, as we say it today. That heritage I am quite proud of, and American Indian, and Caucasian, a little, but I just haven't delved into anything but my black heritage, and so the rest of my heritage I just have bits and pieces about,
talk a little bit about the heritage? What have you found out?
Yes. What I found out, it was people talked to me about who my parents was. Well, I knew my parents and my grandfather and grandmother. I knew them, and my great-grandfather I knew very little about. I knew that my mother was born in Springfield, Ohio, but and she came down to Springfield Township here in Gallipolis County. And I don't know whether that had any significance or not, but anyway, she came here from Springfield, Ohio, and with her parents when she was a young child, and she had her grandmother was named Cindy, called her Lucindy Lucas, and she was I think white and or part, mostly white. She showed me a picture of her, and I think she was a white lady, and and then my mother and my aunt talked to me a little bit about her and Grandma Cindy. They called her Cindy Lucas, and they didn't really tell me anything about where she come from. She just, mostly what I know is that my mother and her family came from Springfield, Ohio, and my father, he was generally around in this area. He was born here.
Can you tell me the names of your parents? What were their names?
Oh, my father's name was Ralph. I think he gave himself his middle name, Wick, and in fact, I still got his Social Security card. I keep it, as a remembrance, and his name was Ralph Wick, and my mother's name was Minnie. She gave herself her middle name. She didn't have a middle name, and she told me she said, well, everybody has a middle name, and I just gave myself one, Minnie May. So that's how she always signed her name Minnie, but she told that story when I was a young child.
What was her maiden name?
Minnie Viney. Her parents, her father's name was Viney, and her mother's name was Ida Lucas, and her father's name was Samuel. Yeah.
And how about on your father's side? Do you know the name of his parents?
Oh, yes.
What were their names?
My grandfather's name was Hugh. I don't know whether he had a middle initial or not. But my grandmother's name was Lily. And I remember my grandfather because he came to live with us when I was when I was a baby. While my mother worked in the fields, he took care of, us children.
And what had happened to his wife when he came to live with you?
Oh, they had separated. I understand that from later years. I found out that that's what happened.
Now, did you know your grandmother?
Oh, yeah, yes. She was a quiet, kind lady. Yes.
How did your parents meet?
How did they meet?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can. My mother, of course, she lived. Harrisburg is where the town, the little place where she lived, close to Harrisburg. And my father, he had married before, and his wife died. Her name was Valentine. I don't recall her first name, but anyway, my father, he come to visit my mother's family, and I guess he for some reason, I don't know how they became, came together, but he was there for some other reason, I think, than to just to see her. And then they got together and got acquainted, and finally they were married.
How much older was your father than your mother?
Oh, he's quite a bit older than my mother. I think it was around 15 years older.
Were there kids? What were the kids from his first marriage, or were there kids from
Yes.
his first marriage? How many?
3. There was Glennis, John, and Carl Garnes. Glennis passed away just a few months ago. John passed away in 1985, and Carl, he's still living. He lives in Olympia Fields, Illinois.
And how much older are they than you?
Let's see, Carl is 80, I think Carl is 83 now, and I'm 69. If you don't mind, you do the math.
And how many kids were born to your mother and
About
father?
13. 5, now let me get this right, 6. Dale, myself, Ralph, Clarence, he has passed away. He died in 83. And Lawrence, Merrill, and our baby sister, Carol. There's only one girl in that immediate family. Yeah.
And did you grow up with your stepbrothers and stepsisters?
No, no, I didn't. I would visit with them, and in fact, John, on Christmas time, when we lived at Beulahville when I was a little child, I would, when I would hear his voice, he'd come late in the evening at Christmas. When I hear his voice, for some reason, I kind of linked him to Santa Claus. And whenever the next morning, we'd have quite a few toys. Quite a few, maybe 1 or 2 apiece, when he did come, some of the times he didn't come, we didn't have so much. We were a very poor family, and we just, we had plenty to eat, and we had clothes, but toys was something, that my dad said that we can't waste our time on that because we've got to go out here in the fields and get us something to eat.
What were some of the toys you remember receiving when your brother came?
Oh, I always liked those little cars that he would bring. He would bring, they wind up, and they, it really amazed me that you'd wind them up and they'd go across the floor. That's just something that I really was amazed at. But he would bring different ones, like little cap pistols and some things like little drums. And he would do a lot for us around Christmas time. I really thought that was really neat that he thought about it, being a half brother.
Now, if your half brothers and sisters didn't grow up with you and their mother had died, who did they grow up with?
They grew up together. When their mother raised them. Their grandmother raised them. Let me get this right now. Their grandmother raised them whenever their mother died. She chose to take them and raise them. And my grandfather, whenever they separated, he went to Cincinnati. And then he came back home, and they never did get back together again. And then eventually he come to live with us. And so they grew up with the grandmother, my grandmother, and in fact, it was right down over the hill here. Was
And so they
house.
grew up with your father's parents?
Yes, they grew up with my father's mother. Yeah.
What did your father do for a living?
Oh, he was a farmer. He loved it. We, as I remember, we never had much, but we always had enough to eat, and it was because of my father. You know, he loved the farm. My mother helped him. She worked in the field just like he did, and was fortunate that my grandfather was there to help take care of the kids until we got old enough that we could work. Mm-hmm.
And what types of foods did you eat growing up? What types of foods did he grow?
Oh, first thing that comes to my mind is beans, potatoes, and sliced tomatoes. And greens. We had, you know, around the hog lots grew mustard greens. And when we see those start to grow, we really thought, you know, that was really something, because those things taste the best whenever they were cooked, especially by my mother. And we really liked food from the garden. And one year, or 2 years, we raised peanuts. And peanuts were unheard of around, you know, in the northern part of, you know, the country. But we had a pretty good little row in the garden of peanuts.
And what did you guys do with the peanuts? How did you prepare them, or?
She roasted them in water, and then dried them, and it seemed as though that they were good. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your wife? What's her name? Where was she born? And what's her date of birth? And how did you guys meet?
Oh, we go way back. Her date of birth, I better get this one right too.
What's her name?
Her name is Donna Jean. Her maiden name is Donna Jean Evans. And when we first met, she moved close. She was our mom, Elsie here. She moved close to us, right up the road here, you know, and we started visiting back and forth, playing together, you know, and of course, after time, I was quite a bit older than she was, you know, about 3 or 4 years, and that was a lot back then, you know. And then they moved away. We became real close while she was here, but whenever she moved away, I missed her, and so we went our separate ways, and I had married someone else, and then someone else, and here about 9 years ago, I was in Columbus, and I had the great fortune of calling her and to see how she was, and she was available, and so she had no ties, and we got together a couple of we had some phone calls back and forth, but we just couldn't quite get together. And then when we did, it started from there, and we just stayed together. And now it's been really neat.
So when did you guys get married?
It was on January the 18th. 1999, and Denny Coburn our church pastor, that's the Gallipolis Christian Church. He married us. And
you mentioned you've been married before. If you don't mind, can you say the names of your other wives and if you had kids with them? If you don't mind. If you rather not, that's fine too.
well, I'll tell you something about my children. I have 3 beautiful children, and I just regret I don't have spend any more time with them than I do. They live in Columbus, and we plan to relocate, but that's going to take a little time, And Bernadette is my oldest. Eugenia and Gene. Gene is the male. He's the man, and that's in relation to their age. He's the youngest, and Gene, he lives in Asheville. I think that's the name of that little town, close to South Bloomfield, Asheville, I believe. Anyway, that's that's about what I. Of course, I could go on and on about what I think of them, what I'd like to do for them, and times I'd like to see them, and things I like to do with them, and I have fun I'd like to have with them. Well, it seems like when you get older, along in life, you think about those things. Your children are always your children, they just get bigger.
Can you talk a little bit about where you grew up, what you did growing up, but where you went to school and those kind of things?
Oh my, we'll be here a while. I grew up, in the place that I remember the most is Beulahville, where I was born. We were the only black family in that area, and of course didn't realize it until we started the school. And then we were pointed out. It was made known to us that we were different. The teachers, they were fairly good, but they weren't, as I remember, they didn't seem to care as much about us as being black kids as they did the rest of the population in the school. But we got along fairly well, and they treated us pretty decent. I remember some of the things that happened there at school that kind of caused me to feel that I was isolated because of my race. But all in all, it was pretty good. It wasn't really dangerous, but the thing that I remember about living on the farm the most is that we had our pets, and one of the pets that we had, I don't think our parents approved of. It was my brother Dale, me, and Clarence. Now we decided that we were going to ride this calf. He was getting pretty good size, and we was going to break him to rides because we were tired of going back in. It was a long ways back in the field to get the cattle, and they would go way back to the farthest part of the field sometimes. And so we would go out at night in the evening when we get our chores done, and we would ride this calf, try to get him to quit bucking us off, and usually we always pick somebody, that's we would probably think that would be the best to put on the back of the calf, and that was Clarence. He was the youngest. So we put him on there, and finally we got this calf so that we could just do just about anything we wanted to. We caused him to lay down. You know, like you train a dog to sit. We trained him to lay down, and he would lay down for us, and we'd get on him, and he'd get up. So certain times we would use him to go after the cattle. We had, you know, about 6 or 7 milk cows. We use him to go after, and he would wait at the gate for us to get on him. And it so happened, you know, our mother never did see us do that. And we did that several times, and we didn't say anything. We didn't let on like it was anything out of the ordinary. So we'd ride him back there, get the cattle, and come back. So this one particular time, we were coming down this path, and I remember we was coming down the path, and this bull, let's see, there was Dale, me, and Clarence. So we was coming down this path, and there was a hill up where we were going, you know, and our mother, she thought we was gone too long, and she was coming to look for us. And so I saw her running out, you know, the cow path, you know, toward us. And she was waving her arms, and she said, when she got closer, I heard her say, "Get off of that bull. Don't you know he'll kill you?" He weighed about 1,000 pounds. He had some big horns. We could hold on to his horns, you know. And she thought that we were so much in danger. And the oddest thing, you know, I thought about it when I had grown up. My mother faced that 1,000-pound bull because of her 3 kids was on there, and she didn't care whether that bull done any harm to her. She was going to save her kids. And it just impressed me the way that, you know, the way that life presents itself sometimes. But I told this story in school, and they said, "Well, I don't know, I do believe you're lying." And I says, "Well, this is something that's in my heart." We would go lay down with this bull, you know, and he'd just lay there, and we'd go to sleep, and laying there on his side, you know. But that is actual truth about that bull. And whenever we left that farm, that's what I remember the most. Buck 'em Up Bull.
What was his name?
Buck 'em Up. We called him Buck 'em Up.
So you went to elementary at what school? That was elementary school?
Yes. That was my first 3 years. Now, not exactly my first 3 years. Now, when I got to the 3rd grade, I liked it so well, I stayed there about 2 years. And
you stayed in the 3rd grade 2 years?
yes. Of course, I say that, but the reason I stayed there was because my teacher said I didn't pass to the 4th. And the reason I didn't pass to the 4th, and I can't remember this, why I didn't go to school. It just doesn't, it's not in my mind. But I do remember I was a sickly child, you know, sometimes, and that might have been the reason for it. But they put on my report card whenever we moved away to, we went to Rodney School, and it's a little burg right out here over the hill, Rodney. You know where that is. And they said that I didn't go to school enough, so they couldn't pass me to the 4th grade. So I had to endure from there, but I did graduate from high school.
And what middle school did you go to, and then what high school?
My middle school was Rodney. I had a good time there and some bad times, and my high school was Gallipolis, Gallia Academy High School.
And what year did you graduate?
1958.
You mentioned some racial incidents that may have happened at school, would you feel comfortable talking about any of them? Would you talk about some of the ones that you said sometimes on account of your race you remember some things happening?
Oh, yeah.
You can talk a little bit about that if you feel comfortable.
I remember one incident. I was coming home on the bus, you know, and I was sitting in front of this white girl, and she kept kind of tapping me on the back, on the shoulder, you know, and I looked around and I kind of I said stop, and she kind of frowned, like, as I remember. She and I remember this very clearly, that whenever I turned around and told her to stop, she called me the N-word. And I remember that, and I was, you know, about second grade in school when that happened. I was fortunate, I think. I never had a great many incidents in school that this happened, but I did have some fights, but it wasn't because of the race. You know.
What would you fight or what would you get in fights about?
Oh, who's the man? I don't know. I remember one particular a guy I'd fight with would be Bob. His name was Bob Bateman. And he would come by and tell me sometime, you know, he said, remember when we was in school out here to Rodney, you know, when you'd get off the bus, we'd go at it. And a lot of times, you know, and he said, you'd win some and I'd win some. And so we kind of joked about that in later life, you know, but that was actually the truth. We did fight. That's the most fights I've ever had was this one person, Bob Bateman. And
were the schoolhouses in Beulahville and in Rodney one-room schoolhouses, or what kind of schoolhouses?
They were similar. They're about the same. In fact, they were three-room schools. Yeah.
After getting out of school, what occupation were you involved in? What was your occupation?
When I got out of school, I did some farmhand work. Of course, I did that when I was in school, but I did a little farmhand work, and then whenever, let's see, I didn't do that for very long. I enlisted into the military. And when I went into the military, I stayed 5 years.
What branch?
Army. I went in the Army in 58. Yeah.
And were you involved in any of the conflicts or wars that the United States was involved in, like Korea or Vietnam?
Yes. I was in Korea and I was in Vietnam. Now, Korea was after the war, you know, and I spent 13 months over in Korea, and I came back, and I felt like that I hadn't really accomplished what I set out to do when I was in the military, so I re-enlisted. Oh my. Anyway, when I re-enlisted and I went to school down in Fort Rucker, Alabama, a helicopter maintenance. And so I graduated from helicopter maintenance school, and I come up to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I didn't know it, but we had already been selected to go to Vietnam. So our whole company went. So I stayed over there about 6 months, and I got wounded. And then I came back to Walter Reed Hospital, and I recovered there, and then I got out of the military.
How were you wounded, if you don't mind saying?
Oh, it was a resupply mission. We were taking in ammo and resupplies to some of our fellow soldiers, which were ARVN troops plus, American advisors. And at that time, that's what they called them. So we would do these eagle flights, and we'd have to encounter, the enemy, South Vietnamese soldiers' enemy, which was the North Vietnamese and people from that republic down in South Vietnam. But we were in a resupply mission, and as we went into the resupply mission, the bombers lifted their airstrike, and so we had to fend for ourselves, and so we were targeted, and we took a few hits, and one of those hits caused shrapnel to go in my eye, and so I was fortunate, it just took one of my eyes.
Oh, it actually took your eye?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I came back. I was medevac back to well, first I went to Clark Air Force Base, and then I was medevac to Houston, Texas, and then I came up to what was the name of that hospital? Walter Reed.
How was Walter Reed when you stayed there?
Walter Reed is about like they're talking about on and on and on. I'm not going to say this. I don't believe I had a bad experience there at Walter Reed. That bird is really cheerful. I had a kind of a bad experience there at Walter Reed, and I well, maybe I can say it so that won't be so explicit. While I was in recovery, they moved me to another room, so they could, the bed that I was in, they needed for, someone else that was going to be operated on. They operated on me and took my eye out and took the shrapnel out. And then when I recovered, they put me in another room. And there was someone else that had that bed at the time. So when they gave it to me, I kept itching, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I feel so bad." And and so finally I went to, and I said, I've got to go on sick call because I need to see a doctor, and so I went on sick call. And this doctor, he looked and he seen it with his light, and he said, he made this statement: "Yep, they're rearing up like horses." And so I thought that was so funny that he thought that was funny, and I said, "Well," he said, "Yep, you got them." And
What was it?
crab louse, crabs.
So they put you in a bed?
They put me in a bed that was unclean, and it was, and in fact, the whole room, it had stuff that they had stored in there, and as I remember, that was back in 1963. I didn't think much about it. I just thought, that's the way things are. And so, later on, when it's been 40-some years, and I heard them talking about Walter Reed, and I said, "My goodness, what are they talking about? That place was like that when I was there."
Growing up, how often did you go to Gallipolis? So your family moved from Beulahville to Rodney, and then where?
Beulahville to Rodney, Buck Ridge. The funniest thing, whenever we decided to move from Rodney to Buck Ridge, my father and my mother, of course, she knew all about this thing, but whenever the children find it out, they're right into middle of it, So my dad, my mother said, "Come on, we've got to get this corn loaded up so that we can take it, to Buck Ridge or where we're going to live." We had really no idea where we was going to live. So my father, we worked all night long, husking corn by flashlight and lantern. These lanterns that we used back then, you probably seen them. I got a couple of them out there in my garage. Anyway, we worked all night to get that corn out of the field. See, he was sharecropping with a man by the name of Martin Valburn, and that was his share of the corn. And so he decided to leave while we worked all night to get the corn. So we ended up on Buck Ridge in a house where I do believe it belonged to my uncle Jim Garnes. And I think that is where my Uncle Jim and my grandfather was born, on Buck Ridge, in that log house up there. And that's where we ended up. And then we went to, the school we went to was Bidwell, and it was all black school. See, I was still in third grade then, So I went to school there, and then we came back to Rodney. But I remember some of the people that's over the church, I have some pretty good memories of those. And there at that black school, I remember that I had probably more contentment because of the teachers and the people I was around, were like me. And I pretty well contented with that. I went there with my brother Dale. Yeah.
So you went to Beulahville for what grade?
So I was in the third grade.
And then you went to Rodney?
Yes.
For what grade?
I went to Rodney, I was still in the third grade. And then I went to, let me get this right. Went to, I think I was at Rodney twice. Now, to tell you the truth, I had a replacement pacemaker, and this doctor told me, he said, "Now you're going to forget even the doctor that come in and talk to you. So bear with me here. I might get this mixed up." But I recall that we went we went to Buck Ridge from Rodney. Yes, we went to Buck Ridge from Rodney. And then...
so what grades did you complete at Bidwell?
At Bidwell, I was still in the third grade. I didn't stay there very long, about... it was... I think it was about a year. I was in the fourth grade when I went to Rodney. Back to Rodney. Well, the reason I went back to Rodney is because we moved right down here where my grandmother owned this house, where my half brothers and my half sister were raised. And then I went back to Rodney in the fourth grade, and then I went from there. Of course, I went from the fourth to the eighth grade, and then I went to Gallipolis High School.
Now, what made your family move so much? Why did they move? What were they?
I was thinking they were migrant workers, but that's kind of what you know, it caused us to move was because my my father, he was kind of a person, you know, that moved around a lot. He was unsettled, I believe, you know, and he'd get in a place and he would stay there a while and he was ready to move on. So I don't know exactly what was in his mind about moving so much, but we moved in the, you know, this area around here. And
so you joined the military, and after the military, what did you do? What occupations were you involved in?
oh, after the military, I went to. I remember whenever I came back, my mother said, "Now," she called me Eugene. I said my middle name. Most of the people did because my father's name was Ralph too, so they didn't want to get us mixed up when he was living. She said, "Eugene, why don't you rest a while?" And I said, "Mother, I have to go get a job." And she says, "Well, just take a little time off, and then you can think about that." And so I stayed here for a few weeks, and then my cousin Lacey Hogan, my Aunt Bessie, my mother's sister. Now she raised him. I don't think there was any adoption involved, but she raised him, and he was, you know, like a brother or a cousin to us, to the family. Anyway, she wanted me to wait a while, but I had to leave, and he was going to Columbus, and my brother was going. I said, "Well, I'm going to go too, so see if I can find something to do up there, because, you know, I can't be without a job. I got to make my own way." Anyway, I went up there and I stayed a while, and I worked for some bricklayers for a while, and I said, "Well, these guys," let's see, I went to get my pay one day, and a big fight broke out, and there was one feller had pulled a weapon, you know. Said, "If it come my way, they're going to have problems." And I said, "I don't want any part of this." And so I went back to my apartment, I packed my clothes, and I come back here, and I went to school. I went to auto body school. Now, this was Manpower in Jackson, Ohio. I went out there for 9 months, learned how to do body work on cars. And when I graduated from that school, I had a job with Bob Reese, Pontiac Garage. And I worked there for a while, about a year or so. And then I went, his facility was, well, it was kind of base. And so I had a little trouble breathing the paint, and I had nosebleed, and so the doctor told me you had to stop that. So I went to work at a county garage, you know, working on trucks, fixing tires, maintenance, stuff like that. And then, let's see, I worked there a little while, and then I got a chance to get a job with the state of Ohio. I went to work. My brother come by and says, "Well, Mrs. Preston's asking about you. If you want to come up there, she's going to interview you." And he left. So I went up, and this lady, this nurse, head nurse, interviewed me. So I went into direct care up there and stayed 25 years. And I retired from Gallipolis. Back then it was Gallipolis State Institute, and it's now GDC.
And what kind of work did you do there?
I was in direct care. I took care of the residents there on their living areas. My title was TPW, Therapeutic Program Worker. I thought that's pretty neat. But I made some friends there, you know, with the people I was taking care of, and I really had no bad experience while I worked at GDC. and then I retired in '91. I was fortunate to do that because I had put in 25 years there, and I had 5 years of military time, and I took my military time, and I said, well, I'm leaving. At the time, I didn't feel well because the doctor had told me I had lupus. And today, I don't think there is such a thing, but the Lord has blessed me. The last time I saw the doctor about my lupus, he said, you don't have it.
Speaking of the Lord, growing up, what religion were family members growing up, and what churches did you attend?
Mostly Baptist. My mother, and a lot of, my father, he would probably go to church. In fact, I don't remember my father going to church. But my mother, she took that honor of teaching her kids about the Lord Jesus Christ. When I was younger, I don't remember. When I got a little older, like when I was up on Buck Ridge here, when I was about 9, 10, 11 years old, we went to Sunday school at is it Providence? I think the name of the Buck Ridge church. And I remember my Sunday school teachers there, and Miss Cassie Mayo and Miss Lenore Smith. I remember them well, and I remember the patience they had with renegade children, especially me. And they were such elegant ladies, They had a lot of patience with kids, and I remember my first encounter with church there, and then later on, when I got older, my mother took us to. We were going to church at Harrisburg, New Hope, and we were baptized there in I think Raccoon Creek. And from there on, it stuck with me. Didn't always, go the way it should, but it stuck with me. And today, it's the way my mother taught me in later life. She was that spiritual power that caused me to believe that the way I do now. Mm-hmm.
Just growing up, did you ever attend movies or go roller skating? What were some things you did for fun growing up?
Excuse me. Oh, yes. I remember going to movies. And I remember who took me to movies when I was a kid. It was this lady right here. She lived up the road here, and I would sit when I was, come home from school on Friday evening, and I would do all my chores on Saturday, and whenever it come time for the headlights to come down the road, she had this 1934 Ford V8, and her first son, David, was driving, and she had all of her children in the car, but bless her heart, she would come down here and stop and throw the door open, and she said, "Come on, kids, it's time to go to the movies." And she's an inspiration in my life too. And I remember going to movies with mom here's family, and I always sit by Donna. Yeah, and and that was something I never forgot. I guess that's the reason we're together today.
Now, where would you guys go to the movies at?
Gallipolis. We didn't know it, but all the black kids went upstairs. We never saw anything, you know, like there was a difference made or anything like that, but we just knew that to go upstairs, that's where all of our people were, and all of the white kids were downstairs. But there wasn't any signs up, you know, colored only, like I saw later in life, how that was really blatant in the southern, you know, southern places that I went.
So, so growing up, did you think things were segregated or integrated, and how did going to the South, what did you notice?
Oh, right off the bat, whenever I went into the military, the first encounter that I had with segregation was I was in my hotel paid for by the the United States government. I decided I wanted to go to a movie. And so the movie was right down, you know, right down the block a little bit. And so I said, well, I'll go down there and watch a movie to kill some time. Bus was leaving in the morning to go to Fort Knox, Kentucky. And so I went down there, and I walked up to the teller, and I gave her, I think it was $1.50. And I put $2 up there, you know. She just looked at me, you know. And I said, what's the matter? She said, we do not serve your kind. And that's the first time that I realized that here in America, I'm going to the military to help, you know, serve in the U.S. Army. And there's somebody there telling me that we don't serve your kind, and that stayed with me even to this day. I have a way of doing things now, you know, since I got older and wiser, that I cannot discriminate against anyone because, you know, race, creed, or color, because my mother taught me that, you know, that if you're a believer, you can't do that. So I learned that from the Bible, from my mother first, and then the Bible. But any other, see, that was the most pronounced. It was something that really ingrained in me. Why? Why was I belittled? Like I felt like I was less than a person. So I went on to the military. That still haunted me, and then I went to the South. I remember when we were going on. I was on a bus, and I got off of the bus in Birmingham, Alabama. Now this is something that's kind of funny. I got off the bus in Birmingham, Alabama, and walked into this bus station, the Greyhound bus station, with my, this was when I'd gotten into the military. I had my uniform on. I walked up to this counter. It was in this place. It was air conditioned. I walked up to the counter and ordered a glass of orange juice. And this lady looked at me like I was, what's the matter with this guy? Anyway, she gave it to me. She gave me the orange juice. I drank it. I put the glass back up on the table. I noticed she snatched it off real quick. I turned around, walked out of the place, and I looked to my right, and there was a big sign up there that said, colored only. And I looked around, and I looked at the sign, it's white only. And I said, my, what am I? And and I just didn't understand why they let me get away with that. So when I looked at the condition that the black folks were in compared to the white, that's another thing that stuck with me. That they would treat citizens of our country like that. So I do.
We need to pause for just a second.
Oh.
Oh, we just have to